This podcast is brought to you by Proton Dealership IT, experts in dealership cybersecurity and IT management. Interested in a free cybersecurity, compliance, or IT consultation? Visit protontex.com. That's PROTONTECHS.com.
Welcome to Daily Drive for Tuesday, July 29th, 2025. I'm Kellen Walker in Las Vegas. Today on the show, Stellantis expects tariffs to take a $1.4 billion bite out of profits in the second half. Ford opens a $3 billion credit line ahead of its earnings report, and S&P downgrades CDK's credit rating. Plus, our own Molly Boygon joins the show to talk about why consumers and regulators are criticizing stop-start technology.
It turns out that people either kind of hate it with a passion or barely notice that it's there.
Let's run through all the news you need to know to keep up in the auto industry. Stellantis said it expects a $1.4 billion hit from new U.S. tariffs in the second half. That's despite an agreement reached between the Trump administration and the European Union for a 15% rate on cars and other goods. The automaker released first-half financial results that showed a 2.3 billion euro loss globally. Tariffs had a limited impact in the first half, accounting for 300 million euros in cost. But Stellantis says the real bite will come in the second half. Ford has secured a $3 billion line of credit. In a new filing with the Securities and Exchange Commission, the automaker says the funds are available to draw upon for a year and it must maintain at least $4 billion in cash during that period. A Ford spokesperson said the loan was about, quote, further strengthening liquidity and providing financial flexibility. It comes as Ford prepares to report an expected second quarter earnings decline tied to tariffs and higher recall expenses on Wednesday. And S&P has downgraded CDK Global's credit rating because of softer than expected first quarter operating results and higher customer churn in the wake of two cyber attacks in 2024. S&P downgraded CDK's ratings from B+ to B- in May. The dealership management system market leader said it remains on solid ground. And those are today's headlines. You can find details on all those stories at autonews.com. Joining me now to talk about Stellantis' earnings and where it goes from here is Vince Bond Jr., who covers Stellantis for us at Automotive News. Vince, welcome to Daily Drive.
Thank you.
All right, so Vince, Stellantis reported a 2.3 billion euro loss globally. How serious is the situation for the automaker?
Well, it is quite serious, but the good thing is there are some moves they can make to hopefully become more profitable in the second half of the year and beyond. So this year, they've already announced that they're going to bring back the 1500 V8, the Hemi. That was a huge thing for fans last year when they dropped it. And so they listened to the marketplace and said, you know what, we're going to bring this thing back. So that's one thing. Another one is that the gas-powered version of the Dodge Charger, that will be coming out sometime in the second half of this year. As you may know, back in 2023, they dropped the previous generation Charger and the Challenger, and it was just a huge loss for a lot of those muscle car fans. But now we're going to see a gas Charger again. It won't have a Hemi just yet, at least according to the current product pipeline. But it does have the Hurricane inline 6 engine, which still has some serious power. Gets up to around 550 horsepower. And so that's one vehicle that could really generate some volume going forward and bring some fans in. There are numerous things they can do as far as like looking at the brands. They have 14 brands. At some point, they have to figure out, okay, do we keep these? Do we cut these? Do we consolidate? So there are a lot of options out there. But I mean, it's bleak right now, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel.
And Vince, if you were to look, let's say, into a crystal ball, because I've talked about for years now that Stellantis needs to cut a few of these brands, which brands do you think would be the first to go?
Well, first, what I might do before I even cut a brand, I might just stop selling a brand in a certain region. For example, Alfa Romeo in North America, I mean, they're pretty low volume right now. They've been struggling for over a decade trying to get some traction here, and it's just not really happening. I could see them maybe being dropped from, North America, and they still keep it, for the overseas, markets. But that's one. Maserati, that's really their top level luxury brand. I know it's pretty good as far as getting the high prices out there, but if nobody's really buying in North America, I mean, what do you do? Do you just drop it, or what do you want to do with that? And so I could see them becoming almost like a Europe only brand at some point. So I mean, those are some options, I think.
And finally, Vince, this was Antonio Filosa's first earnings report as global CEO. How did he do? And do you think he's been able to calm any fears investors might have?
Common fears. I think it's still a little bit too early to tell, but he has made some strong moves on his leadership team. Tim Kuniskis is very popular among dealers, and he was made the head of North America brands. And as you know, he's like the godfather of the Hellcat and the leader of the muscle car movement in America. And so, dealers really trust his insights when it comes to marketing and retail strategy. And so, if investors really pay attention to what he's going to do, they should be eased a little bit. And then just across the board, I mean, there are some new faces on the leadership team. Some guys got some more responsibility, so it does show that they're trying to bring in some fresh ideas, and at the same time, they have that stability from people from the past who remain on the leadership team.
Awesome. Thanks, Vince, so much for joining me.
Yeah, no problem.
Coming up, our own Molly Boygon joins the show to talk about the future of stop-start technology amid growing criticism from drivers and regulators. That's next on Daily Drive.
While you provide top-notch support to your team and customers every day, is anyone taking the time to ensure your sensitive data remains secure? Just one click on a malicious link can place your entire dealership in danger. In fact, the average cost of a data breach surpassed $4 million last year. Stay one step ahead by understanding the threats and minimizing your risk. Proton Dealership IT works around the clock to provide you with support 24/7, 365. Operating out of a cutting-edge security operations center located in the USA, Proton continuously monitors, detects, and responds to your potential network issues or cyber threats. You've got a lot on your plate. Keep your focus on where it matters most, your customers. We'll handle the cyber support. Learn more about our comprehensive services at protontex.com. That's PROTONTECHS.com.
Welcome back to Daily Drive. I'm Kellen Walker. Stop-start technology is facing a multi-pronged attack from President Donald Trump's spending and tax law, EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin, and consumers looking for ways to disable it. The technology turns off an engine when a vehicle stops for traffic or a red light in order to save gas and reduce emissions. Automotive news reporter Molly Boygon recently wrote about the issues surrounding stop-start. Our own Jake Neer reached her at her home office in New York.
Molly Boygon, as always, welcome back to Daily Drive.
Thanks for having me, Jake.
So I remember the very first time that I borrowed my mom's car after she got a new vehicle several years ago. I'm driving it down the road. I had no idea about even the fact that this technology existed, stopped at a red light. And I swear to God, I thought that I broke the car. I thought that it had stalled out. Something was very wrong. But sure enough, as soon as I, started going again, it started right up. It was fine. And that's when I learned about stop-start technology. Molly, remind our listeners what this technology is and why it became so prevalent in the first place.
Yes. So just as you said, stop-start technology is a technology solution that's meant to reduce the idling of the engine at brief stops on a driver's journey. So it kicks in at red lights, it kicks in if you're sitting in traffic. And the reason that it became popular is because there were two sort of parallel streams of federal legislation meant to reduce vehicle emissions that incentivize the adoption of stop-start technology. So by one estimate, this feature could save automakers around $30 per vehicle in terms of penalties or other costs that they would have to pay for emissions released by a vehicle. And so that's sort of the the stop and start of stop-start engine technology.
Very well done. So when it comes to, obviously, this was spurred by policy. And now we are seeing a reversal of sorts in a very dramatic way. Talk about where this policy stands now and where it's likely to go when it comes to stop start.
Yes. So I wanted to take a look at this because the budget bill passed and is now the spending and tax bill, and just kind of wanted to take a look at the ways that some of that implementation is going to affect vehicle emissions standards and policies. And this one is interesting because, as I said, one of the regulatory levers that was encouraging the adoption of stop start was NHTSA's CAFE standard. And under the spending and tax bill, the fines for automakers who do not meet the CAFE standard has been slashed to $0. So fundamentally, the incentive or the penalty for automakers not meeting that standard has been eliminated, functionally gutting that regulation. In addition to that, the administrator of the EPA, Lee Zeldin, tweeted a couple of months ago that the EPA plans to fix stop-start technology, which is, as he said, a technology that everyone hates. So this technology, even aside from the elimination of the CAFE penalties, has been in the administration's sights as something worth eliminating and worth targeting.
And what are the implications for the auto industry? Is it an easy thing to stop start? I'm sorry, we're going to keep doing this, Molly. Is it one of those things that, do you have a sense of whether automakers would just easily ditch this? Would they, do we have any idea like what the outcome would be?
I don't actually know how difficult or easy it is to install or uninstall the stop start button in the vehicle. I will say that it can be disabled by the driver with the push of a button, which was one of the points that was highlighted in the piece by an environmental advocate that I spoke to. The technology does save consumers some gas. The estimate that I used in the piece was from Edmunds from vehicles in 2014 and 2015, so it may have changed since then, but around 10% for city driving, which you're assuming that you're stopping at red lights and sitting in traffic and all of that. So I'm not clear on how easy it is for the auto industry to sort of remove this as a standard feature on combustion engine vehicles. But the more interesting point to me is that it's a feature meant to save consumers gas in combustion engine vehicles. And that just shows you how much of an appetite the Trump administration has for targeting features that are perceived not only to support electric vehicle adoption, but that support lessening of emissions, even for combustion engine vehicles.
So Lee Zeldin says this is a technology that everyone hates. As you said, it does save a little money. I mean, if it is if that 10% standard is actually true, I mean, if you have a 20-gallon tank, that's a couple gallons that are free essentially for you. So I mean, that can add up over time. But do you have a sense of how unpopular or popular or neutral drivers really are when it comes to stop-start technology?
So there's a little bit of data on this. I cite one figure in the piece that's, I think, around 27% of people in the UK, according to a survey, disable stop-start technology because it's annoying. And then in the US, there's this increasing proliferation of tips and tricks and devices that are meant to mimic the pushing of the disable button in the vehicle. So I saw some people advise others on social media to not deploy the brake pedal fully to prevent the stopping of the engine using stop start. I saw another one that was people saying, oh, if you use a trailer tester, it disables the stop start feature. There's also something related to basically tricking your vehicle into thinking that it's driving in extreme temperatures. So people really don't like to press the button to disable the technology. It is definitely polarizing. And yeah, consumers do find it annoying. Interestingly, there's also, and I also got this in my inbox after the publication of the piece, there's a misconception that stop start wears down the engine because it's, it's a repeated stop start of the engine. But it turns out that, different suppliers and manufacturers have said, actually, that's not true. And the system is built to withstand that disruption of the engine. So it's definitely a polarizing feature. I actually have sort of been doing like some anecdotal research, just asking people. And yeah, it turns out that people either kind of hate it with a passion or barely notice that it's there.
And like most technologies, I feel like once you're sort of used to it, it becomes pretty standard for a lot of people. I know that that's the case. Like I said, with my experience driving my mom's car, I come to expect it now. I don't even really think about it. I know that she's the same way. But yeah, I mean, again, maybe the first few times that happens, you're really like, what the heck? What is going on? And, it's sort of, it feels strange for someone who's not used to it.
Yeah, exactly. And as you say, maybe with more experience, people get a little bit more comfortable with it. But it's and then the other thing is, some people are not driving in cities and don't really feel the need to engage the feature. And that's why the disable button is there. So we'll see what ends up happening with that. And also, what else is could potentially impact this is last week there were news reports about the EPA's intention to basically pull back the finding that says that that emissions harm the planet and they contribute to climate change. And so obviously, again, you sort of alongside the NHTSA regulations, there are EPA regulations that encourage manufacturers to install the stop-start technology. So, yet another sort of incentive may be pulled away depending on what the EPA decides to do with that endangerment finding.
Well, it's going to be an interesting road ahead, again, to use another pun. Molly Boygan, thank you so much for joining us on Daily Drive. I really appreciate your reporting on this.
I will never start appearing on Daily Drive.
Absolutely. Thanks again, Molly.
Thanks.
That's Daily Drive for today. I'm Kellen Walker. Thanks to automotive news journalists Vince Vaughn Jr., Michael Martinez, and Mark Homer for their reporting for today's podcast. We also had reporting from Peter Siegel of our sibling publication, Automotive News Europe. You can get the latest news on tech and innovation, earnings results, and everything happening in the auto industry at autonews.com. We'd love to hear from you. Let us know what you think of the show and the topics we covered today. Send us an email at dailydrive@autonews.com or leave us a voicemail at 313-444-2774. And if you enjoy the podcast, remember to like, leave a review, and subscribe so you never miss an episode.